we have two other very special panelists here, and just like everybody wants to know about the Knesset slates and where do women sit on their Knesset slates, we have two extraordinarily talented women here on our panel tonight. Columnist Melanie Phillips, who writes for the Times of London, the Jewish Chronicle, and as well for JNS on a regular basis, and also Eve Harow, a famous tour guide and also radio show host of the Rejuvenation program on thelandofisrael.com. Thank you so much for joining us. And I also want to take... It's like what you have to say. I think that one of the key questions that's been, or key themes that's coming up is the question of whether or not anti-Israel activity is anti-Semitic activity. Do you guys have any thoughts on whether anti-Israel is a new form of anti-Semitism?
I think it's clear that it is. It's politically correct anti-Semitism now. But I'm kind of fascinated about these elections on what they say internally, which really hasn't been talked about so much here. You know, one of the things that we're trying to figure out in Israel is what does a Jewish state mean? You know, and Melanie touched on why we're hated, but who are we? How are we defining ourselves? And I think some of what you're seeing in these elections are reflecting that, our kind of internal process on, after 70 years, figuring out what does it mean to be a Jewish state. So interestingly enough, and I think sadly, you didn't hear so much from, let's say, the ultra-Orthodox in this election. You know, they'll be probably part of whatever coalition there is, but it was fairly quiet when it came to what was going on within their migzarim, within their own, own areas. And I don't think that that's good. I would like to see them more part of the process here. But I think, for example, what's happened with Zehud in the elections is also interesting. As I read, a columnist wrote, he kind of cast himself as a pro-pot Steve Jobs, you know, like the turtleneck and all that. And I think that a lot of Israelis voted today not so much on security because we're tired of always thinking about that. And we'd like to focus more on what's happening inside this country, the positive elements of what this country is, which we all know and are incredibly proud of, by the way. I mean, I travel to the States. I speak a lot in the States now. And it is a joy to represent this state in the rest of the world. It really is. I mean, this is a tremendous place, and we're doing so much for the rest of the world. I think we need to maybe stand up a little bit straighter and realize that also, the positive aspects of this country.
The issue, by the way, you're correct.
I just want, before you get in, the audience, you guys have been totally engaged and also very patient, and we're just about to open the floor to questions. I feel like there's a lot of questions bubbling. So raise your hands if you want to ask a question. Steve's going to come around. Meanwhile, I pass the mic to Do.
There is a growing consensus that I'm seeing in terms of the issue which Melanie raised, which is people feeling I'm not really voting for my representative. And the more Israelis learn about how it works around the world, the more they feel like they've been robbed of that opportunity to have someone in the Knesset representing them, someone who's beholden to them, someone who has accountability. That's a word which is very much lacking in the Israeli electorate. So it will be interesting to see if over the next few years any kind of a movement can be made. I can tell you that as a member of the 19th Knesset, I tried very hard to build a coalition, a consensus in the Knesset. It was very difficult to do so. People are very much, they're going with the status quo, and they're not looking for any kind of a shakeup. Ben-Gurion in 1969 was so furious over this that he wouldn't even join together with the forming Ma'arach of the Labor and the Rafi. So it is something which Israel definitely needs to shift to. It'll be healthier for the country.
Well, I have to tell you, given what's going on in Britain at the moment, you may have heard of Brexit. What's going on in Britain makes this country, for the first time ever, look like a beacon of sanity.
So I want to add to that, as someone who's in the States fairly often, that I have to pat us on the back as well. You can have this discussion in this country. You can actually walk up on the street and ask somebody who they're voting for, and they may disagree with you, but you can have the conversation, a conversation that you now cannot have in the United States. It is so polarized. So I think that we're a beacon of sanity in other ways as well. A lot of insanity, but there are certain things that we're actually doing better than other countries at this point. Not that that's like the bar is being set really low, but still it is something to in a country that we're constantly criticizing ourselves, I think sometimes we have to look around and realize that the world is a crazy place. We fit in with everybody, but, we're definitely not at the bottom of the heap.
I think that I want to pivot a little bit back towards diaspora relations, which is the topic of this panel, and the idea of annexing settlements to the Jewish community abroad. They would think, what happened, right? We were just at the AIPAC conference a few weeks ago, and the American Jewish community in particular recognizes a two-state solution as the appropriate solution to the conflict between Israelis and Palestinians. And all of a sudden to hear a prime minister that's sort of losing touch with many American Jewish leaders all of a sudden saying, I'm going to annex settlements, whether or not he actually does that after the formation of the elections, is he right to be saying that? And should he be taking into account the views of diaspora Jews when he's going to the polls before an Israeli electorate?
So, the irony is that in a Jewish country, there were a whole lot of Hail Marys being thrown this week from all these different political parties, and it's true that we have to take everything with major grains of salt. But one of the things that I do when I go to the States and speak is try and explain to diaspora Jewry that we're in the Middle East here in Israel. And I just want to call out somebody in the audience who is probably the expert on this, Harold Road, who has spoken about this and written about this extensively. The culture of the Middle East is not the culture of the West. And one of the fascinating things about Israel is that we are really a mix of East and West in a way that I don't think any other country is. Israel, someone mentioned about Israel, you mentioned about why people hate Israel. We're like the rich white people. Israel's not a white country. And half of the Jews that live in Israel are Middle Eastern Jews. And that culture, if you want to call it Arab culture, whatever you want to call it, but the culture of the Middle East, which is very different than the Christian culture that's really prevalent, whatever religion you are, outside Israel, is very much a part of who we are in this country. Be it honor, be it respect, be it also, and I also live in Gush Etzion, wanting to actually live in a country, finally, and have, forget even the ideology, and I don't know if Netanyahu was going to go after this, but I think this is part of where the country is going, not even necessarily on the ideology of greater land of Israel, but on a normal day-to-day level, on having the environmental issues be better, the roads be safer. 99% of our days are not spent thinking about ideology, but incidentally, both the Arabs and the Jews would benefit from that. And so that is one of the major pushes that we have here. More of an ideological look is that life would be better for everybody living in these areas where Israeli law applied. And so this is a little bit different than what we've had in the past, and I think incredibly important.
Okay, we're going to go straight to the polls. It's really the moment. I want to thank our panelists, Fleur and Itamar, for being with us. And, you see the countdown is here. The time that we're waiting for.
Just to point out, apparently all three stations are different in terms of what they have.
And we'll explain what the results are in a few minutes.
על פי מדגם כאן חדשות וחברת קנטר קרב ראש בראש צמוד בין נתניהו וגנץ. כחול לבן מובילים עם 37 מנדטים, הליכוד צמוד מאוד עם 36 מנדטים. זה הולך להיות לילה ארוך. ממשיכים. מפלגת העבודה עם 8 מנדטים היא המפלגה השלישית בגודלה. ש"ס עם 7 מנדטים, גם יהדות התורה עם 7 מנדטים. מפלגת חד"ש-תע"ל בראשות איימן עודה ואחמד טיבי עם 6 מושבים, והיא כרגע המפלגה הערבית היחידה בכנסת. נמשיך. 5 מנדטים למרץ, כולנו בראשות משה כחלון עם 5 מנדטים, איחוד מפלגות הימין גם כן 5. ישראל ביתנו של אביגדור ליברמן עם 4 מנדטים. לא עוברות כרגע. הימין החדש בראשות נפתלי בנט ואיילת שקד מאוד קרובה לאחוז החסימה. זהות של משה פייגלין, גשר של אורי לוי וגם בל"ד. תמונת הגושים היא המעניינת. גוש הימין 64 מנדטים. גוש השמאל והערבים 56 מנדטים, וכך זה נראה במטות של המפלגות.
Okay, so...
ליכוד מול כחול לבן. ירון דקל, אנחנו איתך. אם אפשר...
Okay, so first of all, this is exciting that these are just exit polls, and we're going to talk about that in a second, what the polls mean. But just to announce to everybody what we have seen so far, the exit polls show that blue and white Benny Gantz is leading with 37, which is much higher than he was polling. The Likud a close second with 36, Labor with 8, Shas and UTJ, the two religious parties, with 7 apiece. The Arab Party, Hadash, with 6. The other Arab party, Ram Balad, did not make the threshold. Yisrael Beitenu with Avigdor Lieberman gets 4. The United Right got 5, which is the mostly settler party. Kulanu with 5. That's the party of Moshe Kachlon, the foreign minister, and Meretz, the far left party, with 5. We did not see in the results whether the New Right Party of Naftali Bennett and Ayelet Shaked crossed the threshold, as well as the party that was polling well before the election, the Zehut Party of Moshe Feiglin. So there's a few surprises, I think, in the elections. Number one, that a few parties polling above the threshold may not have gotten in, and the two main parties both scored results that appear to be much higher than what they were polling. Well, we actually have brought in for the home stretch, and we're going to go until, for the next 20 minutes or so, continuing analysis, our super panel. We brought back Eve Harow and Melanie Phillips, and also we're introducing Avi Abulo, the founder of Israel Unwired and the Israel Video Network, to the program. So for you guys that are now just joining the panels, we'd like to hear your thoughts. What does it look like?
Can I say one word? So I just want to say something as someone who was never a member of Knesset but has spent time in the Knesset. Almost all the MKs work very, very hard. And I didn't realize that until I spent time in the Knesset. Okay, they get down to work. They're not just there for their own egos. Most of them work well into the night. They form coalitions. Like the women will all get together to pass something from different parties where they might not agree on anything else, but to pass something important that has to do with women's rights. And I was actually surprised, and I think that we all need to know that. All right, within the Knesset, there's a lot of cooperation and a lot of hard work. Am I wrong?
Yeah, the truth is, that was my surprise.
Yeah, and that's why I would hope that if Ayelet Shaked isn't back in the Justice Ministry, which right now tonight it looks like she won't be, that whoever is will continue the work that she did in order to have the court system be where it should be in a democratic country and not where it is right now, which is kind of like a fiefdom all on its own. So we'll see what happens with that too.
Just hot off the press, Gantz has tried to reach out to Aryeh Deri of the Shas Party to try to begin discussions, and he was given a response of, "We're not talking with you, we're supporting Netanyahu." So you see that the attempts are being made behind the scenes, and those steps have already been taken.
Well, I actually want to, Eve, ask.
The one thing we can guarantee in this country is nobody has ever or will ever died of boredom. So stay tuned.
Of Israel. So once again, we have very talented people that are all committed to bringing this state forward. Each of us, all of us that have decided to leave the places of our births and to come and be part of the Jewish mission, it's something that we all take very seriously. It's something very important to be proud of. And I would really like to thank all of our college students for joining us tonight. You've really been a fantastic audience. I'd like to thank our producers, Yuda Wadowski and his team, put together an incredible broadcast. Our field reporter and producer, Steve Leibowitz, has done an amazing job. All of our talented panelists. I want to give special thanks also to Aisha Torah. They gave us their Kirk Douglas Auditorium in their World Center for this broadcast. They are an incredible organization that really does tremendous outreach to Jews around the world and helps people get in touch with their Jewish identity in many different ways. And so I'd urge all of you to check them out online. You can find them at aish.com. And also stay tuned. Keep watching and reading JNS. We really have tried over the past year to step up our game and to really explain what's going on in the state of Israel and concerns in the Jewish world, whether they be in Washington, D.C., or Jerusalem, Europe, or anywhere else. As well, we're not better than any of the competition. So keep reading, keep watching, keep staying engaged, keep being part of the nation of Israel, the people of Israel, the state of Israel. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.